So previously we talked about the area just outside of our cart path, which got included into our satellite overlay that we're using for the rest of our course. This one, we're going to talk about the shading of the asphalt material itself, and we're going to create a separate overlay for that. Now, by separate overlay, I mean we're going to export a separate overlay and use it in Unity, but we still do it in the same Photoshop file. So let me show you what I mean here. So here is the overlay as we know it now. I've created a new folder here called Cart Paths. I can just create this, new folder. And then inside of Cart Paths, I'm not going to show you how to do this because we did it in the previous video, is I created a cart path base color. Let me turn that on. This is just the GFR, but this GFR I'm putting in my cart paths folder. Don't worry about these two layers yet. There's just some testing I was doing for this tutorial. So you can see when I turn that on, it is very similar to the material, this right here, that I'm using inside of Unity. Okay, and actually what I did is I took this texture, just like I did for my rock layer earlier in the tutorial. I did the same thing. I took this texture into Photoshop. I did a couple samples of it. I did cloud, I did noise, filtered it, and came up with this kind of grainy gray and black texture that's going to be kind of the base GFR for my my cart path overlay. Now what I'm going to do is cart paths, and just like roads, usually what makes them look realistic is there's usually like a kind of like a line of in the middle, there's usually like where the wheels don't touch, there's usually, it's different. Then the wheels usually touch, and then the outside is different. Again, usually the same as the middle. There's kind of like that trough, you know what I mean, where the cart lines go. So let's try to simulate that. So if I come up here to my Inkscape shapes and I turn them on and I have concrete now enabled, first thing you're going to notice in my Inkscape shapes, I got a couple different, I got this big, this is my like cul-de-sac roundabout or outside my clubhouse. That's not going to work with what I'm about to do. And I also have some areas that are a little bit wider. So in here, so I might have to do these more manually, not a big deal. But just be aware that if your cart paths aren't all the same width, then this technique might be problematic, or you might have to fix it up a little bit. So let me show you how I do this. So first of all, I'm going to highlight my concrete layer here in my Inkscape shape, use my magic wand, and I'm just going to select, now I have all my concrete selected. Now, if I know this is going to be a problem here, what I can do is there's this other tool here, this quick selection tool. I can come up here and make sure the minus is selected, and actually can come over here and I can just slowly start to deselect that. And you can see when I click here, some of these areas get deselected. So if I know that this area up here is going to be a problem, which I know it will, I can come up here and I can just kind of deselect those areas. But now I lost some of these. I can come back here, and if I zoom in, I can get much more granular. If I shrink my brush, I can get a little bit more granular. So let me shrink this, and I can pull this one back in. And that one, it gets kind of funny, but if you're like, there you go, that's a little bit better. And I could add this one over here back in. This is where I think Photoshop really shines with tools like this and does a pretty good job. That's pretty good. Let me add parts of this one back in. All right, that's good enough. Maybe here. You get the point, right? I'm too meticulous. So now let me zoom out. Now that I've got that selected, let me go into one area here. Sorry, taking a while to zoom in. And I'm going to count the pixels, the pixel width of my cart path. And if I do that, I can see here that I've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 17 or 18 wide. So I'm going to take this selection that I have right now, my cart path selection, go up here to select, modify, contract, So half of 18 is 9. 8 might not be enough. I'm going to do 7 pixels, and you're going to see what happens here. Now look, I got a line down the middle. That's pretty good. I like that. And I'm also going to feather that because I don't want a hard line. So I'm going to feather this, but I'm only going to feather it by like 1 pixel. So now that I got that feathered, now I kind of screwed up here. I've got my selection made, and now I got to do some other stuff in here, and I got to lose my selection. So I'll show you a little trick. I'm going to select, save selection, and I call this cart path middle, and hit OK. And so I just saved that selection so I can bring it back later. And I just want to take a quick look here to see how this looks on the rest of my course, to see if it worked in some of the other areas. So yeah, it looks pretty good. I mean, you can see that middle line is now going through all my cart paths. If I didn't deselect this, it would be really wide in here and be really goofy in this circle. That's why I deselected this. So I might have to just come back and do something here manually by hand with a brush or something. But now I got that. You see this area is a little goofy, but for the most part, I'm covering hundreds, not hundreds, several miles of cart path here with some automation. So now I'm gonna come back to my cart paths, and now I got to really create more or less like another GFR, but just a white one. So I'm going to do a new layer. I'm going to call this cart path middle. And I got to deselect everything here. So Control D, now I don't have anything selected. Now with this layer highlighted, I'm going to go to Edit, Fill, and then I'm going to make sure that my fill color is white. Hit OK. Now I got this white layer, and also I can turn off my Inkscape shapes. So now I just have this blindingly white layer underneath that's over top of my cart path base. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to load my selection again, select, load selection, and where is it? Cart path middle. I did one earlier. I forget which one this one is, but do that. And now my selection's back. Pretty cool, huh? And now that I have that selected, I can come up here to Layer, Layer Mask, Reveal Selection, and now I have that area in the middle, and it's kind of feathered. And if you want to see how wide this is, you could always turn your Inkscape shapes back on, and I could lower the opacity down here. Oops, I had the wrong layer selected. I'm gonna have to fix that. So you can see it's kind of in the middle there. What happened is I accidentally lowered the opacity of my cart path layer. Let me bring that back up. So that's going to be in the middle. I think that looks pretty good. So that's the middle, but what about the outside, right? So let's turn off our Inkscape shapes again. Actually, we might need that. Let's turn Inkscape shapes back on. Highlight this, the concrete, and let's turn its opacity back up again so we can see it. Concrete, magic wand tool again. Where's my magic wand tool? Oh, I changed it to the quick selection tool. Magic wand tool. Now, what I want to do is I just want to color kind of like the outside, just a little bit of the outside of here, okay? So I'm going to come up here to select, and I'm going to invert my selection. Where is it? Up here, inverse. I can never remember that one. So now I don't have the cart path selected. I've got the outside selected, okay? I got this area out here and over here selected, and I'm going to push it in. So if I expand this by, let's say, let me look down here. How many pixels do we want to go? I want to go right about here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do 4, and then we can feather it. So do selection, modify, expand. We'll do, yeah, let's do 4. Again, we're working non-destructively. We can always come back and do this stuff over again. So now we got that there. Select, modify, feather, and I'm going to feather 3 pixels. All right, so now I got this area here selected, and what else do I got? So I got that everywhere around my course. Even this might actually, this technique I'm talking about right now will even work on the wide areas too. It'll give us a little bit of coloring. You'll see if yeah, it'll even work here and here. So I can leave those go. So I'm going to come back down. Oh, let me save the selection. I did this backwards again. Select, save selection. Let's call this cart path outer. Come back to my cart paths layer, create a new layer, call this cart path outer, and Control D to get rid of my selection. Edit, I'm going to do a fill again. Color, I know this is already white, so I'm just hit OK. So that's going to fill that in. Let me go back and I'll leave my cart paths on for now because we want to see what this kind of looks like. Now I'm going to come back up here again to select, load selection, cart path outer. Okay, now it's back again. I can do my layer, layer mask, reveal selection. And now if I come up here, hide my Inkscape shape. Yeah, pretty cool, huh? So now I have my middle here. I have some dark area and then I got some light stuff on the outside again. That might work. This middle area might be a little bit too wide. But again, you know how to fix it. We can change that. And if you come back down here to cart pass, you can begin to kind of get an idea of like what's what here. So there's my middle, there's my outer, okay? And my base, which I can leave on or off. I'm gonna leave this on. Let me export this and show you what it looks like in Unity. One thing I forgot. If I export it like this and bring it into Unity, it's going to look horrible. It's way too white. We actually need to lower the opacity of these. And I know from experience that 2018 is a good place to start. That one. Do that one. That might be a little light. But that's a good place to start. So one thing, when I exported this, and I should have showed you guys this. So in Photoshop, I exported this file, export, export as, and then I did export, and I exported it as a new cart path overlay. So this is my assets train backup. Or this is Rock Creek SAT overlay. This is my satellite overlay I'm using for everything else. This is the one I'm using for my cart pass. And there's the one I have for my sand. So I exported this as cart pass. Let me close that and let me show you what it looks like. So here is my cart path. Right now it's the dual text concrete. And I'm going to switch this to my satellite cart path here. And you can see when I do that, I get some white on the outside, some white in the middle, and it's like I got this like tire tracks through here. It's very subtle, but to me, it makes a huge difference. Now, there's definitely some pixelation here. That's just because of our limitation of the pixel sizes and everything, but it still looks pretty good. If I go way up in the air, you can kind of see it. Let me come over here. Now I did change my cul-de-sac here to a different material, but you can see the outside here as it comes in. That looks pretty decent. I like that. I like the shading here. Now I don't have tires. This was that wide area that I excluded from the middle of the tires. I could come back in or go to my overlay and manually kind of drag some things in there to make the middle look better. Here you can see like the shading on the outside really well, the light shading in the middle. You can see, I think that just makes it look, I might need to darken it a little bit. It might be a little too light, and that's easy to do. You can just come in here to your satellite hue I can tweak that a little bit, just make it a little bit darker. Yeah, that looks good. Yep, I like it.